Welcome, Gregory Fischer, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for being patient with me. My schedule can be hectic. Today, I have you on as a high performance coach, where you're coaching people to be better, to reach their potential, to maximize their days. And this is what we need today in our world because we have so many people living in complacency, so many people living in their comfort zone, so many people not going for more in their life. We're going to be talking about the work that you do and how you help people. But in your own words, can you explain to the world who you are, what you do, and how you help them?
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up pretty well. So I'm Greg Fisher. I'm a mindset coach. So run my own business. That's barbecue, but we'll talk about that a different time. But primarily, I help people break outside of their comfort zones to take courageous action towards their goals and their dreams. And primarily men, because I find that men, at least in this day and age, need a little bit more help to maybe take some risk and go out and try their own things. So that's what I do.
Why do you think men need to get more coaching because they're afraid to take more risks today, maybe different than in the 60s or like 1960s?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with our role as men in society, seen as providers. We tend to take on that role and find stable jobs and things that are stable for us to be able to provide for our families. But at the same time, we still have dreams and aspirations to do things which we put on the back burner a lot of times and never get to those before we pass away. My goal is to help people maybe continue to provide for their families and things that they need to do, but then also maybe create some avenues to pursue some of those passions or those dreams that they have so they feel more fulfilled, and also that they're not going to their deathbeds with these dreams unrealized.
Yeah, definitely. Because when we give ourselves that protector role and that provider role, we will sacrifice everything. We will sacrifice sleep. We will sacrifice our well being as just a person, our potential. We just want to make sure that they're taken care of. And that's why men can be garbage men, they can be janitors, and they can be happy doing those jobs. And I'm not saying those jobs are bad jobs. I'm just saying that a man can step into that role, accept that role because he's providing for his family. And that's a different type of mindset because if we ask 100 women, would you want to be a janitor? 95% are going to say no. And that's being generous. A different mindset. I wanted to talk to you today about the mindset of men going into that mentality of we would do what it takes in order to protect, provide, and survive.
Right. A perfect example is somebody I worked with in the past, who was getting up into the higher levels of corporate organization. They had just had a mental breakdown because of the stress and all the things. And he was a family man. The conversation and the words he used to me with me were, "I will do whatever I need to do to maintain the lifestyle for my family." And my question back to him was, "Well, do you think your family would want you to be happy and healthier and take less money than maybe continuing out with lifestyle that you have and being unhappy and unhealthy?" And of course he said, "Yeah, my family, my daughters would appreciate if I was maybe not having mental breakdowns, maybe not having these issues with my health, as opposed to happier and healthier in a different role." So, and I see that across the board is, they get caught up in the lifestyle of providing and then also a certain level of income that they feel like they can't step out of because they feel like they'll be letting their families down. In all reality is they would be probably creating better relationships with the people that they love.
Sometimes I see like a YouTube video of like someone who's like a, high earner and their daughter will say, "Oh, daddy, can I, go with you to work?" He's like, "No, you can't come to me to work." Or daddy, can you stay home and let's play or something like that. And the dad's thinking in his head, it'll be nice to stay home with my kids and just have some quality time to spend with them. But they choose to go out anyway. They go out to fight the world. They go out to make the bread. They sacrifice that moment. It's difficult, especially for men to do that because they do want that family time. They do want to see their kids grow up. And I mean, how many fathers are not privileged enough to see their kids walk for the first time, see them grow up, go to all their games and sports activities and music events from schools because they have other commitments. But it's important that we show up at certain times, and then it's also important that we show our kids that we have other commitments that we have to uphold to. And I wanted to get your take on both of them, right? The pros and the cons of showing up and then not showing up.
Yeah, I'd say obviously the pros of showing up for your kids is you establish that bond and that relationship that they're going to remember, and then they're going to ultimately emulate with other relationship. Our kids don't always necessarily remember, or do what we say, but they will never fail to emulate what we do. By showing up and being present shows that you care and you build that bond in a relationship. And and then the cons, obviously if you're, sacrificing some work time or some of that kind of stuff, that depending on the financial situation and all those kind of things, like you might be taking a step back in your career and that kind of stuff. But it's a balancing act sometimes, and every family has different dynamics. There's not one right way to do things. I'm just challenging people to think outside the box in the traditional sense of going to work for 65 years at the same job and then hopefully being able to retire and spend some time and catch up with my kids now, or my relationships, my families. There's a lot of opportunities for people to do both right now.
The men today have a different mindset than men in the past because if we give ourselves the mentality of, all right, you find a career, you work to 65, get it, put into a 401k, and then you get to retire. Today, that is not the status quo or the standard anymore for what we should be doing. Because if you stay in one job and you work until you're 65, you're not going to have enough at retirement. So it's like we have to do more. So people get side hustles. So they will do a 9 to 5, but then they do like a 7 to 12 or something like that. So we give ourselves more work. And then this younger generation that's coming up, Gen Z, I believe, they have like this new mentality of, wait, I want to retire like at 30 or 40. How do we do that? It's a different type of work ethic where they want to maximize their time and profit rather than just doing something for meaning, right? So men will do it for meaning. I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for a higher cause versus the mindsets of men today might be, I'm trying to maximize my time. Family has been one of those things that have taken a hit because people are starting families at a later age. It's because we're maximizing our time, maximizing our efforts in our 18s or in our late teens, in our 20s. And so we're putting off on starting a family until later. Do you think starting a family later is a good thing or a bad thing? And this could be opinion. It doesn't have to be like scientific, like scientific facts and stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think bringing children in, later, while you maybe have some a career established, or financial needs to support it, isn't a bad thing. I do see that quite a bit, like, and people not having kids at all, just kind of embracing that lifestyle of being single or not having kids, and living that lifestyle, which is totally fine if they want to do that. But I don't think it's a bad thing if you wait to have kids, where you can maybe take care of them a little bit more and not need as many other resources. But again, like, everybody's different and has different values and ideals about that. So that's just kind of my thought process.
We do have to understand, I think, as men, that we are extremely adaptable and we will adapt to any environment, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Sometimes the mindsets that we give ourselves can be detrimental to our future because we learn something that has been the killer for most men, and that's complacency. We find something that's comfortable and we don't challenge ourselves. And this is where you shine. This is where we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the conversation now, is where they might get into that 9 to 5 job. They might get a job that provides just enough for their family and they stay there because it feels good. There is another option, right? So instead of them staying at that job that barely provides for their family, so they still have stress, they still have worries. What if I lose my job? They say, all right, I'm in a good place right now. I can be flexible. I can grow, be better in my career so I can be a better provider, a better protector for my family. Not so much about staying where we just make ends meet, it's where we can prosper. This is where we are going to be coaching these men into being high performers rather than just being a performer. Because, yes, protecting and providing can be a mindset that many men take on, but there's an aspect to it that, do you do it at a low level or do you do it at a high level? How do you help these men become high performers in their own regards?
Well, it's all kind of back to purpose, understanding like what drives them. Do they have ambitions outside of what they're currently doing? If so, how do you develop skills and things to help move them forward? And that's the biggest thing when we talk about complacency, is we find that oftentimes when men fall into this area of complacency, they don't have anything that they're aspiring to anymore. They feel their purpose is just to provide for their family, and that's kind of it. And They don't have any other internal goals or things that they want to accomplish, so to speak. Kind of help pull that out of them. Okay, what is it? Money aside, what's the dream for you? What would you like to do? What are some challenges that you're facing right now that you'd like to overcome? It's basically getting down to the heart of who that person is, what they feel their purpose is, and then how can we establish milestones and goals for them to help them on that path. Because you don't want to be in that spot of complacency, because especially nowadays you see layoffs happen. If you're not continuing to build your brand or build a skill set outside of what you currently do, you could find yourself on the unemployment line, and then your purpose again is kind of diminished because now you're not providing at all. We kind of help them through that process, and hopefully they can find something that they're passionate about again, so we can spark that and continue to move them on.
I wanted to talk to you about the idea of passion because sometimes men might not even know what they're passionate about. They might not know their purpose. They might not know their why. And they're looking for a little bit of direction to finding that answer. What are some ways, some methods you have learned to best help people find their passion or their why?
Yeah, it has a lot to do with just asking questions. Again, like I like to talk about, if money wasn't an issue, or you could do anything you wanted to do right now, what would you be doing? And a lot of times they have hobbies or other things that they really enjoy doing, and we can hone in on that. Other times I could ask, when do you feel like you're in flow state where time stops, where you don't understand, or you're spending so much time on something that you have no idea that hours pass. That's one of my favorite ones, is like, when do you feel like you're in that flow state? Time, you have no, you don't understand time is going on. It's just like I'm in the zone, and then you look up and it's a couple hours later. And then we can usually pick off of a few things that they're like, oh yeah, well, I really like when I'm writing, or something like that. Like, that's kind of where we start. And obviously we can ask a lot more follow-up questions once they kind of give an answer. But those are just some probing questions. And that's pretty much a lot of what we do, is just ask questions that they probably haven't been asked before, helping them think outside the box and maybe travel down paths that they never thought about.
I want to get into the flow state and then the difference between a flow state and wasting time. There is a lot of conversation about video games and young men because young men will play video games for hours at a time. Dads are going into the room saying, turn this off, go outside, play with your friends, or do something different than just spend all day inside playing video games. Are these kids, I'm sure they're enjoying their video games and they're in this flow state, but I wanted to, talk to you about just the difference between what like maybe a good flow state is and then a poor choice of a flow state is.
Yeah, I would say in that scenario, good flow state would be that, I'm working creatively on something that I'm passionate about and driving towards a certain goal that will take me to my life's purpose. Where, maybe a negative flow state, like you mentioned about video games, is something where I might be in a flow state because I'm so honed in on this, but I'm being stimulated externally. I'm not being stimulated internally by my own thoughts and actions. Like, this is something where these video game developers are really good at keeping me engaged and want to continue to play. I guess another piece of that would be, is this something externally motivating me, or is this something internally motivating me to continue to do it?
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer because we look for stimulation, we look for a feel good. And as fellow men, being a man is not an easy task growing up because we have to build our value. And this is something that many men struggle with to this day. Even you could probably be 40 and still struggle building your value. And the value could be in different perceptions, right? We can build our value as a family man, where providing for our family, we're elevating our status, our lifestyle, or it can be just the value as a man going out and then being a member of society. So if someone sees me at a bar, for example, would the opposite sex want to come up and talk to me because maybe I look a certain way, maybe I have a certain type of stature, and that right there is me building up my value. And the family man, this in the same regard, is building up his value in the family, right? Being there as a husband, being there as a father, being there. And we have a choice. We can be there or we can not be there. We can show up or we cannot show up. And my dad had a great saying, and he told me this in third grade. He said, handle your business. And it's something that, I remember to this day. handle your business is was one of the things that sometimes I wake up in the morning. Maybe I'm a little bit tired. I have a 1 year old, and it's like, okay, I would like to sleep for maybe another hour or whatever, but I say handle your business, right? Get up, do what you have to do. And for me, I'm on different playing grounds too. So we have businesses, and then we also have a family. So it's the mindset of both. It's like I have to create an empire, and then I also have to create a strong family dynamic. I want to get your take on being able to juggle between the two, creating a good balance for the two, and then your take on some options for men who might be struggling in one regard.
Yeah, so as a business owner, entrepreneur, who worked in a stable corporation for a long time and was raising my family. So I have three young boys, age 6, 9, and 13. So a little bit older now, but when I left that organization, like they were used to a certain lifestyle. We very stable. And then I transitioned into entrepreneurship, and I had to have those conversations. They were younger, but I could still have a conversation with them to say, hey, things are going to change a little bit. Dad's still going to be around, but I'm going to be putting a lot more time and effort into building a business. Being open and honest with your kids and bringing them along for the ride. And that means, something that may be taboo to some people, but talking about money. I have no issues saying, hey, I'm going to be taking a cut in pay here because I want to pursue what I'm passionate about and what I want to do. So that means we might not be able to do some things that we used to do in the past, or buy certain wants. You're always going to have your needs met, but some of those wants, new shoes and video games and things like that, we might have to save up for. Having open and honest conversations with my kids has been pretty beneficial, but then also including them in what I'm doing. They help out in the business when they can. I'm trying to teach them along the way as well, so that when they grow up, that they have skills, and if they want to start their own business, maybe they'll be ahead of the game because they saw dad do it and they helped them out build along the way. There is a balance because my wife is now like, helping me because I'm gone on the weekends a lot with my business. And, so I'm by myself doing that. And she's here holding down the fort with the kids. There's conversations that had to be had there too. When I said I'm thinking about leaving my job, that means, all my benefits, I'm the primary breadwinner. Things are going to change. And we had those open and honest conversations. And that's the biggest tip I could give men is let your significant others, let your families in on what you're thinking. They can help you through that process.
And the next logical question that I know men are going to be asking themselves is how did that conversation with your wife go?
Yeah, I mean, when I talked about that, one of those executives that I used to work with who had a breakdown, like I was at that point 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I just was laying on the couch, and I remember the day I was like, I can't do this anymore. And my wife and I were having a conversation about, okay, what would happen next? She said, hey, we'll make it work. Obviously having that support was very helpful, but as far as what's next, I came to that breaking point, and I'm hoping to help men through that so they don't get to that breaking point like I was. Just depressed, miserable, drinking too much. My relationships were failing. I'm trying to take that learning and passing that on so other men don't get to that point.
Kudos to you though for understanding where you were and saying, you know what, this is not for me. Like, I don't want to do this. And then you begin to make the changes, even the sacrifice, even the uncertainty. You say, there's something else that I have to do. Not even men alone, women too will get into this mindset of, all right, yes, my world is falling apart, but it's not broken yet. So I'm going to keep on allowing it to happen. And then eventually, if I crash, I'll deal with it then. It's a later problem. It's not a me problem. I'm sure you probably heard of the saying is one of the worst decisions you can ever make is say, I'll get gas in the morning. Right. It's like it is true. It's just like by the time you want to get gas in the morning, now you have some problems. You got to take the kids to school. You got to do some running around, some errands. You don't have time to go get gas. So you should have did the evening before. So the planning aspect to just forward thinking of, all right, I need to not put off things. And this is the same thing is true when you're trying to transition from a career from an unhappy place where it's just like, I can't do this anymore. I need to make a change. And if you don't make that change, you're going to be miserable. As you said, your relationships are going to suffer. And it's not a good place to be mentally because where are you going to go from that point? If you do break down, it takes so much longer to heal from burnout, to heal from stress, than it does if you just come from a heart of, all right, I'm going to make some changes. It's going to be difficult, but I'm committed to it because this is my purpose. This is my passion.
Yeah. And yeah, a lot of times it comes down to that financial piece. But when I talk to especially men, it's that, some ego plays into that, but like they don't want to step away from the nice kind of corporate paycheck that they get. And I took a different approach to that because I did what I was supposed to do. I, had my emergency saving up there in case something, happened to the house or the car as well. I kind of flipped my mindset and said, this is an emergency for me. Like if my health is, failing, feel terrible. My mental health is terrible. So I need to use this emergency fund for me right now to take a step away from, my corporate position, because I can always earn more money, but I can never get my health back. That was one way I looked at it, that piece. And I'm not saying everybody should quit their jobs because everybody has responsibilities, but for me, that was the way I wanted to go because I couldn't be in that environment anymore. And I know some people can build, side hustles while they're still working, and that's what I would highly recommend. But for me and other people I've talked to as well is they needed to make that break before they could really start to kind of go through that healing process of finding who they are again.
Yeah, sacrificing your health is something I do not recommend because your health is just so important and people will spend any amount of money to feel better. So it's like, that your health is important, but people, they typically don't pay attention until it's broken, right? Men, just using divorce as an example, they won't pay attention to the relationship until they get the divorce papers. They're like, "Oh, wait, what's going on? Let's go see somebody," right? It's just like you weren't being there, you weren't being present. And that's also another thing to learn, right? Create some awareness and some presence in your life to see like, "Hey, am I feeling good? Am I enjoying the job that I'm in? And if not, then what are the steps in order to change that?" And I think a great first step is to get a coach, someone like yourself, Greg, who's going to help people or help men, especially men, get into the mindset that they can reach higher in their life. It might not be easy, but there is a path for them. And you're there to help cultivate that progress for their life and for their future because we can do it alone. But I would rather, if someone's in that state of mind, go through with a coach, they have some more certainty rather than a lot of fear, and then maybe they make a mistake because of fear. We do have to get into the mindset that we have higher potential. It might not be easy, it might not be a walk in the park, but it's going to be one of the best journeys anyone decides to make in their life. Just as you did when you left your job, you realized that everything around you was suffering. Life has to be more than this. And there's so many men in that same situation that are not taking action. And the work that you do helps men understand that they can take action. And the work that you do helps men take the proper course of action. And I can't explain that enough. I can't express that enough to men because you are not stuck where you are. You have the ability, you have the potential to make some huge and dramatic and significant changes in your life. I want that to be heard. I want that to be etched into your brains because we cannot be passive, especially in our world today. There's just so much uncertainty. As you said, there's so much layoffs happening. I don't want you to be in a situation where you need a paycheck, where you need an employer. I want you to create something that's going to be self sufficient and long lasting. The conversation that we had today was quick, it was to the point, and it is all about coaching people to be high performers. We did focus a lot on just the men aspect and understanding life, passion, finding the drive toward a better life. In the final minutes, can you please share with us any last words? It could be from our conversation. It could be about anything you want to talk about. Then please tell the audience where they can find you.
I guess I'll leave the audience with this is that you're not alone. I talk to people every day who feel unfulfilled, unhappy with where they're at in life. And it always helps to have a coach that's been through that to help guide you through that faster. I would say you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're not alone, and that there's people out there that are looking to help you. So, if you need help, you can always reach out. And this podcast is a great opportunity to be around people that are continuing to grow. As far as finding me, you can find me on LinkedIn is where I share a lot of this stuff. Just Greg Fischer, Fischer. On Instagram is kind of where you get a little different side of me. I go there, the mindset of a Marine, because I did serve 4 years in the Marine Corps, and I kind of talk a little bit more about my mindset and how I go through the process. So you can find some tips and things there on Instagram.
Yeah, we didn't get into that conversation today, but we'll definitely have to bring you back so we can have that conversation of a military mindset and then general mindset of just a civilian. I heard that you're a high performance coach and you are working with men, particularly. I just said, you know what, the military can wait, right? Because men are suffering right now and we need to get this out there for them. So I encourage everyone to reach out to Greg. All his links are going to be in the description box below. And I'm going to toss his side hustle business in that description box too. So if anyone needs a delicious bottle of barbecue sauce, you can get that from Greg. He's going to be a wonderful guy to work with. I can just guarantee just from our conversation today. I want to thank you so much, Greg, for coming on Coaching in Session. Great conversation today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.